So Spencer Dinwiddie is going to be a Brooklyn Net for at least a little while longer, probably until after 2021. And then maybe he declines that player option in 2022. Maybe he doesn't. But I figure we would talk about this move a little bit because I don't know. So the first thing is first with this salary where Dinwiddie's going to make 10.6 and then 11.4 million over the next 2 seasons. I think that's a hell of a bargain for a point guard who has made some pretty wild improvements this year. His jump shot seems like a real thing. His true shooting is up to over 60%. And given that Dinwiddie's usage rate is not through the roof high, I think that allows his playmaking to be perhaps a little bit more valuable than the 5 assists a game would suggest that it is, right? The questions now with Dinwiddie are, is he done improving? I mean, he is a little older, to be fair. He is, I probably should have had this up beforehand. I think he's like 25. Yes, he is 25 years old, but given his improvement on the jump shot, and it's not just all standstills. There are quite a few times where he will go off the dribble to make a 3, or he will, that's pretty much it. He'll go off the dribble, or he'll hit like a contested shot, and he has bailed out Kenny Atkinson, because for as much as I like Atkinson for about 70% of the game, the last 30%, which is usually like the last 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, his play calling is not always the best. And sometimes Dinwiddie has just had to hit some tough shots to save them in games. So these are all pretty good signs. I do think Dinwiddie sometimes gets himself a little bit in trouble because he holds on to the ball a little too long, surveying the floor and all that. And that's good that you do that. And that's good that you have the ability to actually act out the thing that you envision. But he's not LeBron. He's not able to do it all the time. But even so, I think it suggests that he thinks about the game, and I feel like what we could see from Dinwiddie, even if his assists don't go up to some crazy number, which they could. I mean, they got up to 7 assists last year. But even if they don't, I think it's fine because he just seems like one of those dudes who doesn't turn the ball over too much. So it's like, okay, he might get 5 to 6.5 assists a game, but if his assist to turnover ratio is also very good, which is kind of like Mike Conley. Not that I'm suggesting Dinwiddie's going to be as good as Conley, but that kind of like a playmaking dude, then I think that is still that's still pretty good. We hope that Dinwiddie can turn it around a little bit on defense. I think he's been slightly better this season, perhaps. But even so, you would think he could be better given that he's 6'6" and a pretty decent athlete. I also wish his rebounding was a bit better. I feel like he could probably average a solid 5 to 6 boards a game, just because he's also, again, 6'6" and all that, but whatever it may be, the dude is still putting up 17 and 5 on pretty damn good efficiency this year, while showing some noticeable improvements in his jump shot, and just from watching him play, like the way he can beat defenders off the bounce, the savviness that he has in the pick and roll, I guess, the burst of speed that he'll have, where he's able to actually beat guys off the dribble sometimes. Dinwiddie is definitely on the uptick. Now, I think when you're talking about Dinwiddie's situation, the other guy you got to mention a lot is D'Angelo Russell, right? And I think it makes sense that Dinwiddie would be the guy that the Nets would re-sign to this contract. Number one, because the most amount of money he could get was not too much higher than this one, or this amount. But the other thing is, there's way more unknown around D'Angelo Russell than there is Dinwiddie, right? Because Russell, where did he get drafted? Number 2, number 3, something like that? I don't remember. There's just more of an expectation that D'Angelo is not done improving, or his ceiling is perhaps higher than Dinwiddie's. And I mean, the Nets have played these two together lately, and I think it's gone a little better, but there have definitely been stretches where when these two are in the game, the Nets are just not as good. And so perhaps this is Brooklyn guaranteeing themselves at least one of these guys, especially because it seems like Dinwiddie doesn't have too much of a problem with coming off the bench for D'Angelo. Now, whether that would come out if it kept on happening or not, I don't know. But, I figure even if you haven't totally decided which one you want to keep long-term yet, you can at least guarantee yourself the guy who is definitely more consistent. I mean, I know D'Angelo Russell has this cult following, which may not really even exist anymore. But even so, I think we would all agree, like, Dinwiddie's definitely, like, the higher floor of these two players, right? Because D'Angelo Russell, one night he'll have 35 points, hitting a bunch of threes, hitting floaters, doing the thing where he puts the defender in jail in the pick and roll and then hits, like, that 10-foot jump shot of his. And then there's other nights where he looks really fat and can't get by his defender, and he has to pick up his dribble, and then he passes it out, and then his defense sucks, and he also gets 6 turnovers. So it's like, between those two, Dinwiddie's the safer pick. It should also be said that Dinwiddie's usage rate is, like, basically where it should be, whereas D'Angelo Russell's usage rate is in the same ballpark of some of the best players in the league. And he still gives you like an inefficient, inconsistent 18-5 or whatever it is. Whatever. If I end up doing the Dinwiddie versus Russell video, then all this stuff will come out. But again, to give D'Lo the credit, his ceiling is higher than Dinwiddie's. Because if D'Lo figures it out and probably loses a few pounds, then could be a big-time scorer, could be James Harden light. So yeah. As far as what D'Lo actually gets out on the open market, now that's a question that I really have no idea. I mean, his qualifying offer is 9.1. I think that's about how valuable he is right now, but given that this is the NBA and it's either overpay or don't get the guy, is there a chance that some team gives him like $13-14 million a year? Would the Nets be willing to match that? Is there a chance he could get even more than that somewhere? I mean, I guess it's possible. And, again, because now you're guaranteed Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert, by the way, 2 dudes who can go off the dribble and make stuff happen. Then it gives you a little bit more insurance if you're Brooklyn. Now, here's the other thing about this, too, They gave Dinwiddie that option in 2022. Is there a guarantee that he declines that? Because, that's going to be $12.3 million. And by that point, the cap will have gone up a little bit more. So it's safe to say Dinwiddie will probably be worth more than that if he just stays the exact same as he is now. But at the same time, we don't really know. So there's a chance he declines that option. There's a chance he accepts it, and the Nets get themselves a full, basically 4 years out of Dinwiddie. Given that this season isn't even half over yet. 3.5, if you will, since he signs the new contract. And I think that's pretty good. And then from there, maybe you re-sign him. Maybe who knows what the Nets will look like by the time Dinwiddie's contract is up. But I think it's a good move. I think it gives you security for whatever happens with D'Angelo Russell. It also gives you more of a luxury in deciding what you actually want to do with D'Angelo Russell, because having both of these guys go on the open market, that could have been pretty frightening if you were Brooklyn. So it's a good move. That is pretty much all I got.